Americans love scenery. We want to see it all, from one coast to the next, Mount Rushmore down to the Everglades. So hop into a Chevy Malibu and take the scenic route. It's the car you knew America could build. There's a place where people count on friendships they can trace back generations, where they can count on the same stool at the coffee shop waiting for them every morning. This place is called Glen Ellen, and you can find it in every bottle of Glen Ellen wine. This is craft brewed Herman Joseph's, the smoothest, easiest drinking specialty beer in the entire solar system. And I believe you'll find drinkable in the dictionary right after don't order a beer you can't drink. Zoingo! Boingo! The freestyle pogo with more boing, more bounce. Bounce further, bounce higher with Zoingo Boingo. To see what makes Arrowhead Mountain Spring water different from those other waters, you have to go back to the source. And with Arrowhead, that means going back a little farther and longer than most. Between security challenged and security strengthened, there's one important word: how. And it is the how that makes all the difference to our nation and our world. Lockheed Martin. We never forget who we're working for. What makes Kraft Singles so good? 2 out of every 3 kids don't get the recommended amount of calcium. But with Kraft Singles, they get a good source of calcium and the taste they love. Kraft Singles. Magic every single time. Throw boring overboard with a new real meal from Long John Silver's. A meal worthy of a plate, just $4.99. Only at Long John Silver's. We may not all be geniuses, but we can all do something smart. Introducing the Hyundai 199 Sonata Lease. It's a smart deal on a really smart car.
White people are stealing our food, except they call it Asian fusion. They've been stealing our roles in Hollywood, our acting roles. I just saw a movie. It's called The Great Wall, but it's with Matt Damon in the lead. And it wasn't even Trump's Great Wall, it was the Great Wall of fucking China. The only way I'm gonna be okay with Matt Damon playing the lead in The Great Wall is if they cast an Asian to play Columbus in a Discovering America movie. You guys with me? It's gonna be the Nina, the Pinta, and the Yamamoto. See, I want even more than that. I want reparations. I want Asians to play American Indians on horseback and everything. Because we kind of look like American Indians, right?
Good morning. It's Friday, Parenting Friday, September the 26th, and this is The True Conservative. Welcome to all the butchers, bakers, and candlestick makers out there. I'm Ron, your host, and the only true conservative in the United States today. So today, after the Serenity Prayer and the patriotic song of the day, we will have Varney and Company, motivation, meditation, and the collapse of parenting. All that and more when I get back. God, grant me the serenity to accept the things I should not change, the courage to change the things I should, and the wisdom to know the difference. Amen. Thank you, Maria, then Varney and Company.
It sure is on fire. Chris, your thoughts?
On the TikTok deal, it's great for national security that Americans are taking over, but we must have control of the algorithm. It is not just about data and our security in that regard. It is about our people's minds, especially the minds of young people. We know that CCP has used this algorithm to manipulate and pollute the minds of our young people the way that they polluted the planet. We need to make sure that we're in control of the information that goes to Americans, that Americans are in control of that information so that we can actually have a productive political process in the future and not have it taken over by whatever China wants for us.
Yeah, that's a great point. And we'll see if this new arrangement with Oracle leading things actually does just that. Of course, our top story of the day was Jim Comey getting indicted on 2 charges. We will follow that all day, and we wish you a great weekend. Chris Johnson, good to see you. John Lonsky, thank you. Always a pleasure. I'll see you tonight on Maria Bartiromo's Wall Street, 7 p.m. We got a big show there. And, of course, on Sunday Morning Futures over on the Fox News Channel on Sunday at 10 a.m. Eastern. Have a great weekend, everybody. Varney and Company picks it up now. Stu, take it away.
Morning, Maria. Good morning, everyone. Another inflation indicator. The market's paying close attention because this is key to the Federal Reserve's interest rate policy. It is called the Personal Consumption Expenditure Measure, PCE. In August, it went up 0.3%. In the last year, it's gone up 2.7%. No surprises there. Both numbers expected. It confirms inflation is stuck roughly around the 3% level. Here's the market's reaction. It is positive. There's green on the board all across the screen here. Dow up about 200, S&P up 20, NASDAQ up 55 points. That's the likely opening. I don't know about the close. The 10-year Treasury yield, not much change. You're at 4.17% there. And the 2-year Treasury, also not much change, 3.65%. Bitcoin, though, that's down around $109,400 a coin. Politics. Plenty of action from President Trump. He will slap 100% tariffs on drug companies that do not manufacture in America, similar tariffs on furniture makers. President Trump is taking aim at left-wing groups that he says incite violence. George Soros, who runs the Open Society Foundation, is being investigated. He funded many of the radical district attorney candidates who, when elected, brought in far-left policies in big Democrat cities. Former FBI Director James Comey has been indicted on charges that he made a false statement and obstructed a congressional proceeding. The media says our president seeks revenge. Senator Chuck Schumer, he's in political trouble. The Washington Post contacted more than a dozen Democrats running for Senate seats. Not one of them supports Schumer's leadership. And President Trump says he will use any government shutdown as an opportunity to slash the federal bureaucracy. That is exactly what Schumer does not want. On the show today, Trump says if American cities hosting World Cup soccer matches next year are considered unsafe, he will demand the games be shifted to other venues. The soccer world is in turmoil. Today, the president will head to Bethpage, Long Island for the first day of competition in the Ryder Cup tournament. He's attended a series of major sporting events this year. He almost always gets a very warm welcome. He loves to get away from the hostility of Washington, D.C., and today he will be cheerleading Team USA. Friday, September the 26th, 2025.
And that was Varney and Company. And again, if you're a Democrat, then you should be supporting the things that Donald Trump is doing because he is saving, particularly if he's slashing the bureaucracy, because he is saving the government money. And if you're a Democrat, you need money to get your wish list fulfilled. It's going to cost money to get single-payer health care. It's going to cost money in order to to deal with climate change and to house the homeless. All that is trillions of dollars. So you should be supporting the president on this. Back in a minute. Okay, thank you. This is Varney and Company, and Stuart Varney is going to ask he has a guest, and he's going to ask this guest for a response, a statement of certainty. And we'll listen to him ask for that and then listen to how his guest responds.
Back in, Mary Catherine, the media, a lot of it, characterizing this as revenge, Trump's revenge on his enemies. Is that what voters want?
Yeah, look, I think this is tricky. I think Trump looks back at his first term and he didn't go after anyone, and now he's like, perhaps that was a mistake. Now I'm sensitive to the idea that you don't want to say, here's the man, find me the crime, right? And I think that's what they did with Trump during the Biden years, and I don't think voters responded well to that because it wasn't a main concern of theirs. So be careful about not addressing people's main concerns in their economic lives and daily lives. However, the crime's pretty easy to find. And my question is, does it matter when a Brennan or a Clapper or a Comey lies to Congress? Because they've done it, and in the case of Brennan and Clapper have admitted it, and it's been covered by the news, but there seems to be no punishment for it. However, I think if a normal person lies under oath or to Congress, they pay a price for that. So there should be some kind of price for these. And these guys are like, no, we're very important. You can't take away our security clearances or even downgrade our Davos flights to Economy Plus. You can't do that to us. We are impervious. We should not be punished in any way. And I don't think that is a sustainable thing. Just because you're important and lefty and doing things that are anti-Donald Trump doesn't mean there's not a punishment for it.
Okay, so there you go. He asked for a statement of certainty. He says, is Donald Trump looking for revenge? What he's looking for is a yes or a no answer, and then for his guest to back that up, okay, with logic, facts, or whatever. And what she did was absolutely 100% avoiding. She used perhaps, she used all the weasel words to avoid answering the question. She went on for 15, 20 seconds, whatever it was, and said nothing. I think, I feel, perhaps, maybe. That's not what he asked for. He asked for a yes or a no. Now, I'm going to give you a certainty answer. I'm going to say, no, it's not revenge, but what it is retribution. Retribution is along the lines of justice. Revenge is something personal. If James Comey slept with Donald Trump's wife, cheated on Donald Trump by sleeping with his wife, and Donald Trump now wants to try and put him in jail, that's an example of revenge. What we have here is an example of retribution. That Comey ended up defaming Donald Trump politically and in various devious ways when he was a member of Donald Trump's administration. Asking for him to be punished for that deviousness is clearly not revenge, but retribution. Okay, that's the way you answer a question with certainty of knowledge. Now, real quick, why did she do that? Because her whole life, she has been trained by her parents, by teachers, by friends, by colleagues to not express certainty of knowledge. She's been punished. She's been told, you don't know that, and things of that nature. Various other ways that people have manipulated her so that she gets the message that there is no certainty of knowledge, and therefore she shouldn't try to express it. Back in a minute. Thank you. A little bit more Varney and Company, this time with Newt Gingrich.
For mass firings in the event of a government shutdown. Former Speaker of the House, Newt Gingrich, joins me. Newt, I think Trump will take advantage of any shutdown. He's going to slim the government down. Does Trump have Schumer trapped?
Well, I think Schumer and Hakeem Jeffries have trapped themselves. Look, the objective fact is, and we just did a poll, America's New Majority Project, I wrote about it in the New York Sun yesterday. The country does not want the government shut down, and the country does not want spending to increase. So if you have Democrats saying, I'm going to shut the government down unless you spend billions more, they're on the wrong side of both of those issues. And I don't quite know how Schumer and Jeffries allowed this to happen. But basically, Trump has maneuvered them to a point where they're giving him the opportunity, and Russ Vought has been preparing for this for the last 4 years at the America First Policy Institute and at his own shop. I mean, he knows what he's doing. And they're giving Trump the excuse to begin to shrink large parts of the federal government at a speed you would never get in a normal environment. So, and frankly, this is going to affect the governor's race in Virginia, where there are a huge number of federal employees. It's going to affect the governor's race in New Jersey. If these Democratic senators vote to close the government, they're voting to lay off the federal employees. This is going to be bad for the Democrats in both states.
And the longer...
So the thing that I wanted to bring to everyone's attention here is Donald Trump doesn't care. Normally, the way this plays out is that there's a budget lockup, and then what the Democrats do is say, "Well, we're going to be intransigent. The government will shut down, and we'll blame you for it." And all the Republicans shaking their boots. No, don't do that. We don't want that. Donald Trump doesn't care. Donald Trump says, "Oh, okay, you want to shut down the government? I see an opportunity to shrink the size of government." And once he says, "I don't care," Donald Trump, President Trump, takes away their power. Because all of their power is simply psychological in nature. They study you and find out what your weaknesses are, and then use those weaknesses against you. And Donald Trump just simply has no weaknesses. You try to bluff him, he doesn't go for it. He says, "So what? Who cares?" And that's why he's able to get as much done as he is as compared to other presidents. Back in a minute. Thank you. Now, motivation.
Champions are made when the stands are empty. That means when no one's watching you, that's who you really are.
It's what you do behind closed doors that no one sees.
When no one's looking at you, when no one's there to judge you, except yourself. And you gotta do those things that suck. Like putting in those extra reps, studying 5 more chapters, writing 3 more pages. What do you do then? Do you do that extra work or do you back off? That's the separator in life. That's what separates the average and ordinary from those who dominate.
Self-identity is the biggest problem that we have going right now. That's why social media is so relevant, because you're looking at everybody else's life and you're saying, that's the perfect life. Oh my gosh, and I want this and I want that. But you're afraid to actually test yourself every day. If any man in here in the military knows one thing, you got to stand like a trooper. You got to present yourself like a man every freaking day. Day in, day out, day in, day out. How you do one thing is how you do everything. If we don't get to the mindset of being consistent and having some habits that's going to frame our life, you just naturally do things habitually if you don't set your mind and say, you know what, I'm going to do this on purpose. So if that's you and you're listening to this and you think you can get by doing half-ass in some areas and do great in other areas and make millions of dollars, it's not going to happen, guys. Because it's a habit, it's a character trait, it's a value, it's the way you are. If you want to cultivate the proper habits, you have to look at the finite details and execute on them all the fucking time. But most of the world's going to sit around, they're going to do nothing, and they're going to wonder why they're miserable.
The answers lie in the repetitions. You must not forget the repetitions you put into trying to dominate the craft that you're in today.
The work is where the satisfaction comes from. It's where the happiness comes from. It's my journey. Nobody decides what I make. Nobody decides how I live. Nobody decides my life. I'm not a victim. I'm a victor. It's my journey, and I decided this is your journey. You're not a victim. This is your journey. It can end the way you want it to end, but you gotta grind like you want it. You can grind your way through it, or you can cry your way through it.
Always embrace the suck, adapt to the suck. Greatness is not something that you meet once. It's something that you meet thousands of fucking times in your life. And you don't reach it if you're not constantly in constant fucking pursuit of fucking greatness. So if my mom were to say right now, I'm great, I just lost. We're not going to do that crap. We're not going to triple down on our strengths. We're going to grow. We're going to work on our weaknesses so we grow. We need friction to do that. David Goggins, how did you become who you are today? I put a bunch of fucking friction in my life, and I grew.
Stop letting shit slide. Stop cutting corners. Stop taking it easy. Stop letting that little voice win the fucking war in your brain that says, tomorrow, I'll start Monday. You know, it's not that big of a deal. Give yourself a break. You work really hard. You deserve this. If you don't silence that fucking voice, you will lose everything. And when things get the hardest, that is the most important time where you have to continue to move forward, putting one foot down in front of another. To make investments in your mental toughness, in your grit, in your fortitude, in your ability to persevere, in your ability to stay disciplined, because conditions will never be perfect. When we talk about it being freezing cold outside, and I'm talking about how I know that I need to go get acclimated to that because I can feel myself getting soft, that is me recognizing that my mental fortitude is getting rounded off when it needs to be very sharp. Go in the mirror, take a good look at yourself, and say, how sharp is my disciplined blade right now? When you walk by the mirror, you go, that's a bad motherfucker right there. You say that? Think tonight when you're looking in the mirror. We have to become aware of where we are mentally, and we have to make investments to harden ourselves mentally so that we can prepare for these hard times that come over and over and over and over again.
Every single day, as it sucks, as it's a grind, as it feels like a hustle, as it feels like compromising everything, and it's just like, oh my gosh, honor this process as a challenge to become a better human, to develop a better attitude, to develop those skills that are required, to transform, to test your mental and ask, what am I really made of?
If you can build yourself into someone who can work through these things as they come, there's really nothing that can stop you. You end up winning because everybody else can't make it through. You can't get around doing the work, and you're not going to figure out how to do it. You're not the first person in the world that's going to figure out how to do it without doing the fucking hard shit and putting in the time.
It's a lifestyle. You don't want to go run, you go run. You don't want to go swim, you go swim. You don't want to study, you get study. That's how you start to callous your mind. So that became my life.
You want a guaranteed success? This is the only fucking way there is to build you into a mentally tough individual who has the fortitude, the perseverance, the discipline, the mental toughness to kick ass on a daily basis and laugh when the world kicks you in the fucking face. That is what you have to become.
It's going to suck. It's not going to be fun. Do something that sucks every single day of your life. That's how you grow. Embrace the suck.
And that's a little bit of motivation. Back in a minute. Thank you. Now a little bit of meditation. That was a little bit of meditation. Back in a minute. Thank you. Now, Alice Weidel.
Liebe Freunde in Nordrhein-Westfalen, vielen Dank für die großartige Unterstützung unserer Alternative für Deutschland, dank der wir unsere Mandate in Nordrhein-Westfalen von 186 auf 552 verdreifachen konnten. Doch das war nicht alles. Am kommenden Sonntag haben Sie im Rahmen der Stichwahl in gleich 3 Städten die Gelegenheit, einen AfD-Oberbürgermeister zu wählen. Mit Norbert Emmerich in Gelsenkirchen, Michael Eiche in Hagen und Carsten Groß in Duisburg stehen 3 hervorragende AfD-Kandidaten zur Wahl, mit denen die blaue Wende im Ruhrgebiet möglich wird. Beenden Sie den Niedergang und die Misswirtschaft der etablierten Parteien. Gehen Sie am Sonntag zur Wahl und unterstützen die AfD mit Ihrer Stimme. Ich bedanke mich schon jetzt herzlich bei Ihnen und den vielen engagierten Wahlkämpfern in Nordrhein-Westfalen.
And that was Alice Weidel. Back in a minute. Thank you. Now, Europe 1.
Fait au nom du progrès pour allonger l'espérance de vie, et maintenant on dit les personnes âgées coûtent trop cher. On a tout fait pour valoriser l'individu, et donc on fait plus de bébés parce que le bébé est un frein au fait de jouir sans entrave, et donc on a construit une société du vieillissement tout en ne valorisant que la jeunesse et la performance. Donc évidemment qu'on est dans une impasse, évidemment qu'on est dans une violence. Et moi je pense que le chapitre dans lequel on est aujourd'hui, la séquence dans laquelle on est du progrès qui consiste aussi à se débarrasser très facilement de la vie, et le chapitre qui suit un chapitre précédent qui était celui on a mis à bas les figures d'autorité. Quand vous dites en fait le savoir c'est moins important que l'avoir, c'est moins important que l'image, la connaissance, l'histoire, les anciens, finalement ça n'est pas très important pour la réussite, eh ben quelque part vous commencez déjà à saper la place des anciens dans la société. Parce que si vous ne respectez plus l'autorité, vous remettez quoi en place? La loi du plus fort. Et pour moi le progrès.
And that was Marie-Estelle Dupont on Europe 1. Back in a minute. Thank you. And now this is a little clip from I think it's called Active Self-Protection. I think it's the account on YouTube. And he's going to say something that is going to be very interesting here.
Watch what happens here. They're going to grab a hold of him here, grab a hold of his little green sweater he's got on here. Second guy grabs a hold of him. I don't see any punches being thrown or anything like that. So they're going to grab a hold. And somebody said, let him go, let him go, let him go. They do let him go after grabbing him a couple times. So then he jumps over the fence here, over the little pony wall, and goes for his firearm. And now, okay, fine. This guy he appears to have a firearm and I don't know, something on the support side, whether that's a spare mag or whatever. But I want you to recognize here that a jury is going to look at this on a second-by-second, moment-by-moment basis. And so is he currently, right now, immediately at risk of death or great bodily harm?
Okay, so what he's talking about is what's known in the law as the reasonable man standard. The problem with the reasonable man standard is that police officers don't have to go by that standard. Police officers are held to a lower standard. All the police officer has to do is get on the stand and swear under oath that he feared for his life. Okay, now we have something in the Constitution called the 14th Amendment, which guarantees equal protection under the law. So this is a big flaw in our system. Either one of two things has to happen. Either all police officers have to be held to the standard that non-police officers are held to, or non-police officers are going to be held to the standards that police officers are being held to. I'm hoping that there's some defense attorney out there somewhere that recognizes this inequity and takes a case, gets a case and takes it to the Supreme Court to get this whole thing shot down. Now, I believe that the reason that the police officers are held to a different standard is because of police unions. That police unions have successfully gone ahead and convinced the powers that be that they should be held to a lower standard. But it's illegal. Illegal. Back in a minute. Thank you. Now the preamble to the Declaration of Independence. We hold these truths to be self-evident, that all men are created equal, that they are endowed by their Creator with certain unalienable rights, that among these are life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness, that to secure these rights, governments are instituted among men, deriving their just powers from the consent of the governed, that whenever any form of government becomes destructive of these ends, it is the right of the people to alter or to abolish it, and to institute new government, laying its foundation on such principles and organizing its powers in such form as to them shall seem most likely to affect their safety and happiness. Back in a minute. Thank you. So Comey, former FBI chief Comey, has been indicted. And good. Not only because I'm an independent-leaning Republican, but it's good for the Democrats, the rank-and-file Democrats. If you're a rank-and-file Democrat, you should be happy about this. And the reason that you should be happy is because right now, all the people that are getting punished, all the people that are suffering in this movement, if you will, are the rank-and-file Democrats. There's a guy that was shooting at the ICE place. He had to commit suicide. Another guy that tried to assassinate Donald Trump is on his way to prison. Another one who tried to assassinate Trump was killed, and on it goes. All the rank and file end up dead or in prison, while the leadership, all the people that are encouraging you as a rank-and-file Democrat to do the things you're doing, like Comey, up until now, have been skating. They still get limousine rides to work. They still get referred to as the honorable so-and-so, the honorable so-and-so. They have 5 houses, hundreds of millions of dollars in their bank account. They're telling you to go out into the street and create mayhem and take all the risks associated with doing that while they sit in their castles. So you should be glad to see that one of those leaders, one of those big shots, former FBI Director Comey, is getting his. Back in a minute. Thank you. And now from a book that's called Good Inside. What's the opposite of understanding? For this argument's sake, it's convincing. Convincing is the attempt to prove a singular reality, to prove that only one thing is true. Convincing is an attempt to be right, and as a result make the other person wrong. It rests on the assumption that there's only one correct viewpoint. And then my question is this supposed to be convincing? Further, convincing has one goal in mind, being right. And here's the unfortunate consequence of being right. The other person feels unseen and unheard, at which point most people become infuriated and combative, because it feels as if the other person does not accept your realness or worth. Feeling unseen and unheard makes connection impossible. Understanding two things are true and convincing one thing is true are diametrically opposed ways of approaching other people, so a powerful first step in any interaction is to notice which mode you're in. When you're in one thing is true mode, you're judgmental of and reactive to someone else's experience because it feels like an assault on your own truth. As a result, you will seek to prove your own point of view, which in turn makes the other person defensive because they need to uphold the realness of their experience. In one thing is true mode, exchanges escalate quickly. Each person thinks they're arguing about the content of the conversation when in fact they're trying to defend that they are a real, worthy person with a real, truthful experience. And again, is this convincing? Back in a minute. Thank you. So with the budget crisis, as it were, looming, you should be against the Democrats on this one. You should be getting with your Democrat leaders and getting them to change their mind, because if you don't, and we do go to a government shutdown, Donald Trump doesn't care. You can jump up and down and scream and yell, whoa, he shut the government down. He doesn't care. He's got 3 more, 3 more years, and he's done, right? So you're not going to be able to affect him by threatening his reputation. He just doesn't care. What you're doing is simply giving him power. He's now going to have the power to decide how, whatever little money is available for him to spend, he's going to get to decide how to spend it. If layoffs need to happen, he's going to decide who gets laid off and who keeps their jobs. And if you don't like Donald Trump and the Trump administration, that should worry you. And you should therefore be with your leaders in Washington and demanding that they come to the table and negotiate. Back in a minute. Thank you. And now, what does the phrase, if you're explaining you're losing, mean in debates? This was said by Ronald Reagan, speaking of political campaigns. From the perspective of your audience, if you have to explain yourself, you come off looking desperate to convince. As a consequence, you lose the high ground. From a more philosophical perspective, when you have a clear conscience and strong conviction towards the positions you take, your values, truth, and direction, you don't need the opinions or consent of others. As a consequence, you don't need to explain yourself. However, if you yourself are not convinced of the validity and truth of your position, or you can't fully justify your choices, then you continue to expel words in an attempt to create the illusion of certainty. Back in a minute. Thank you. Now, a little bit of Maria Bartiromo.
Welcome back. The New York Times reports a senior DOJ official has instructed more than half a dozen U.S. attorneys' offices to draft plans investigating a group funded by Democrat billionaire George Soros. Pam Bondi is declining to comment on the matter yesterday at the White House, but she said everything is on the table. It comes as President Trump signed a memorandum yesterday calling on federal law enforcement to investigate domestic terrorism and organized political violence. As you know, we spoke with Congresswoman Anna Paulina Luna about another big left-wing donor, Neville Singham, who she said works with the Chinese Communist Party and also sows discontent in America. John, your reaction?
Well, this is really sad. You know, we have these wealthy, progressive donors that could do a lot more good for the underclass in this country if they instead took this money and invested it in a manner so that these people can improve in terms of education, in terms of job training, skills. No, what they're telling these people, you're helpless losers. You have no choice. Protest.
There. So, again, if you're a Democrat, here you got George Soros, billionaire, this other clown Neville, who's also a billionaire. Again, they're on their yachts. They're taking limousines to work. They have 10, 15 houses or however many houses they've got. They're living the caviar lifestyle. And they're asking you to go out into the grimy, dirty street and do their bidding. You're the one that's going to have to suffer. You're the one that's going to end up getting tear gassed. You're the one that's going to end up getting arrested. You're very possibly the one that's going to get killed. And as far as they're concerned, there's plenty more where you came from. They'll still be on their yachts while you're on the sheriff's bus going to county jail. Think about it. Back in a minute. Thank you. And now, the collapse of parenting.
Chapter 6, Babies. The leadership of Trinity United Presbyterian Church in Orange County, California, just a few minutes drive from Disneyland, hired me to lead 8 different workshops for parents on 8 different topics over 2 days. I have a few die-hard fans who attended all 8 workshops. That's more than 12 hours of Leonard Sachs. Yikes. During Q&A and between sessions, we had a chance to get acquainted. One woman told me how she and her husband had been trying to get pregnant for the past 3 years and finally succeeded. She was so excited that she shared the news and the updates with her coworkers at the local public elementary school, where she is a teacher. Guess what? She told a colleague at the school. We just found out. We're having a boy. Don't you think you should let the baby decide? Her colleague responded coolly. Yep, that's the thing now. Not only in Southern California, but across the United States and Canada. I'm now encountering parents who think enlightened parenting means letting kids decide everything, including whether the child will grow up male or female or both or neither. According to these parents, good parenting means you give your kid a gender-neutral name, such as Zyler or Caden. Then, when the kid is 3 or 4, the kid will let you know whether the kid is going to be a girl, a boy, or something else. If the child has male genitalia, but announces that he's a girl, then she's a girl. The parents are supposed to change the birth certificate to female, and the child will begin down the road that leads to puberty blockers, female hormones, and perhaps castration and other surgery. So let's say that your child is not transgender, perfectly comfortable as a girl or as a boy. Why am I asking you to listen to this chapter? I think this chapter is relevant for all parents, regardless of whether your child might identify as trans, because it illustrates how the authority of parents is being undermined. As recently as 10 years ago, it would have been unthinkable for a teacher at a public school to encourage a 6-year-old boy to transition to being a girl without the parents' knowledge or consent. But that's exactly what recently happened, allegedly, in a Pittsburgh suburb. According to court documents, Megan Williams, a first-grade teacher in the Mount Lebanon School District, and herself the mother of a boy who has transitioned to being a girl, repeatedly encouraged one of the boys in her classroom to transition to being a girl, as her own child has done. Ms. Williams allegedly explained to her students that sometimes parents are wrong, and parents and doctors make mistakes when they bring a child home from the hospital. Ms. Williams also allegedly instructed her students not to tell their parents what she had said. The school district defended itself by saying that parents have no right to be notified when the teacher talks to first graders about transitioning from male to female or vice versa, and no right to opt their children out of such discussions. The district petitioned the judge to dismiss the case without the case even going to trial. But the federal judge in this case, Joy Flowers Conti, has ruled that the case may proceed. Conti found that the school district's refusal to recognize any parental rights in a public school setting is contrary to clear, binding U.S. Supreme Court and Third Circuit Court of Appeals authority. She further held that the district lawyers distorted previous court decisions, holding that parental rights are not absolute, to argue that parents have no rights at all. At this writing, the case is proceeding to trial. A transgender activist group has filed an amicus curiae brief in support of the school district, asserting that the parents' lawsuit is transphobic and will have the effect of creating a hostile school climate for other transgender students. What should you do if your 6-year-old son tells you that he is a girl? Our nation's largest association of pediatricians, the American Academy of Pediatrics, AAP, released guidelines in 2018, which the AAP officially reaffirmed in 2023, for the evaluation and management of children and adolescents who identify as transgender. Previous guidelines recognize that best practice depends on the age of the child. The great majority of 6-year-old boys who say that they are girls will not persist in that conviction. 10 years later, most of those boys will say that they are boys. They may be gay, they may be straight, but they are now sure that they are boys. They no longer want to be girls. 6-year-olds are not mature adults. They are young children. They may be mistaken about the reality of Santa Claus, the Tooth Fairy, or their own gender identities. Expert pediatricians used to understand that. They no longer do. The new guidelines from the AAP explicitly eliminate any role for age in evaluation of the child. According to the new guidelines, any child who wants to transition to the other sex should be affirmed, regardless of age. If a 6-year-old boy tells you that he is a girl, your job is to buy him a dress and change his name to Emily. Any other response is outdated and transphobic. The authors of the AAP guidelines specifically reject any watchful waiting for prepubescent children or any children. These new guidelines are not based in evidence. On the contrary, they contradict the available research. For example, in one study, 139 boys who persistently said they were girls were evaluated around 7 years of age. When researchers tracked down those boys many years later, at least 13 years later, only 17 out of the 139, or 12%, still said they were female or had any doubts about their gender identity. This study and others like it demonstrate that the majority of boys who say they are girls prior to the onset of puberty will not say they are girls after the onset of puberty. We don't have comparable long-term studies of prepubescent girls who say they are boys, because until just a few years ago, such girls were exceedingly rare. But the American Academy of Pediatrics is now on record prioritizing the opinion of a 6-year-old over the considered judgment of the child's parents, even suggesting that the pediatrician should take unspecified legal action if those ignorant parents refuse to obey their child's wishes to transition to the other gender. In other words, the AAP is saying that a 6-year-old knows better than the child's parents what is best for the child. Suppose a 6-year-old boy tells his parents that he is a girl. He wants to wear a dress to school and change his name to Emily. Suppose the parents want to adopt a wait-and-see attitude. He can wear a dress for his Halloween costume, but not to school. The AAP now denounces such an approach as outdated. Even worse, those parents are trying to prevent the child from identifying as transgender. The AAP guidelines label such an approach as reparative therapy. According to the AAP guidelines, such therapies have been shown to be unsuccessful. In support of that assertion, they cited a 1994 report documenting the failure of interventions intended to change the sexual orientation of adult homosexual men and women. Outdated indeed. A report documenting the failure of efforts to change the sexual orientation of adults is of doubtful relevance to the question of whether a 6-year-old boy named Justin, who says that he is really a girl named Emily, should be encouraged to transition. Oops. Excuse me for saying transition. The AAP guidelines advise that we no longer use the term transition because we're supposed to view the process as an affirmation and acceptance of who they have always been, rather than a transition. The guidelines also endorse changing the child's birth certificate to erase any trace of Justin's existence. The child's name on the birth certificate will be changed to Emily, and the child's sex at birth will be changed to female. Justin never existed. What actually happens to young boys who say that they are girls? As I noted, some grow up to be gay men. Those gay men don't want to be women. They are quite happy to be gay men. They have no desire to change their name, or to take female hormones, or to be castrated. The physician who truly seeks to do what is best for that young boy must therefore determine, is this boy truly transgender? Or is he perhaps a gay boy who hasn't yet figured out that he is gay? Or maybe he's a straight boy who just happens to like ballet and glitter. How are you to make that distinction if you are dealing with a 6-year-old? It isn't easy. I remember asking my mom when I was 7 or 8 years old, if I marry a woman, will I have to take my pajamas off in bed with her? My mom answered, yes, you will, but you will want to. I said, no, I won't. Girls have cooties. As it happened, I turned out to be a straight man, and I still like ballet and glitter. It is not developmentally appropriate to ask a 6-year-old about their sexual orientation. Prepubescent children do not have a sexual agenda, nor should they. They are prepubescent children. But if there is no way accurately to determine the sexual orientation of a 6-year-old, and there isn't, then there can be no way to say whether this 6-year-old boy will persist in wanting to be female, whether he is simply a gay boy who hasn't yet discovered his own sexual orientation, or whether he is a straight boy who just happens to love glitter and ballet. Based on the evidence, the most sensible approach to such a boy is to show him love and support, but not for him to transition to the other gender. He wants to study ballet? Great, but he will study ballet as a boy, not as a girl. The 6-year-old boy who transitions to identify as a girl has taken a major step on a road that may lead to treatment with cross-sex hormones, castration, and infertility. The AAP's guidelines, prioritizing the child's impulse over the parent's considered judgment, are not only reckless, they underscore how our nation's leading professional association of pediatricians now undermines the authority of parents. Almost every enduring culture of which we have any knowledge has taught girls to be women and boys to be men. Exactly what that means has varied from one culture to the next. In Japan, during the era of the shogunate, 1603 to 1868, the sons of a samurai would have received instruction in tea ceremony, meticulous care in the preparation and serving of tea. That activity was prohibited to girls. In the United States today, we would think of meticulous care in the preparation and serving of tea as being feminine rather than masculine. But cultures differ in which activities are considered masculine and which are feminine. Every culture of which we have substantial knowledge has made the distinction between male and female and has taught it to the children. For more than a century, cultural critics in the West have highlighted how gender roles constrain and limit what people can do.
And that's the first half of Chapter 6, Babies, from the book The Collapse of Parenting, How We Hurt Our Kids When We Treat Them Like Grown-Ups, by Leonard Sachs, MD and PhD. And again, this book is a refutation of a book that I've read on my podcast called The Sovereign Child. Back in a minute. Thank you, and this is Ron, your host, the only true conservative in the United States today, bidding adios to all the butchers, bakers, and candlestick makers out there, and reminding you that materialism is a concept.